I assume since you were the guys sending me the messages and not in the other direction that you've already heard about Hasbro. I honestly don't know where to begin with all the Hasbro news. I've been getting peppered with story after story over the last few days, all different, not even the same story. I've got two distinctly different stories that have broken out. This one here, and I apologize for reading on my phone, but I want to quote this specifically. It has to do with Hasbro announcing that they're trying to change their toy distribution processes, protocols, and methods. And I quote, "Today, unpredictability reigns, with chaotic supply chains affecting timing and streaming content rolling out in six-packs rather than full seasons. Meanwhile, disappearing theatrical windows have drastically changed movie launches and the consumer products programs that accompany them. But in business, challenges often bring opportunities. That's the lens through which Marianne James, Hasbro's Vice President of EMEA and Asia, sees the current landscape." Quote, "Tried and tested models still have their place, especially when you've got a consumer products program that leans on core pillars like toys and games," says James. "What's interesting now is that we can test and learn. Instead of dropping products based on seasons, we're now looking to where a rollout could be more relevant to a culture in one of our specific markets." One way Hasbro has shifted its strategy to accommodate the highly unpredictable nature of the market is to space out product releases in smaller waves instead of releasing the entire range in one large launch. So there's people hoping, upon reading this news peg, that it signals that Hasbro is finally going to address their distribution problems. All I see is that they're using the supply chain issues from COVID to excuse the ongoing distribution issues that they've had since well before COVID began. And especially when you see this thing about, their new strategy is they're going to trickle things out in little bits and bytes here and there with their product launches. It's like, well, they've already been doing that. They release 4 figures here for Marvel Legends, and they release 4 figures here for Star Wars Black Series, and it seems like business as usual. They just put some flowery language on it, blame COVID, and then keep moving forward. I don't really see a solution here being offered to actually correct the gross distribution issues that Hasbro has had for quite a long time. It just seems like a puffed up press release, really. Now, the second news peg is far more eye-opening, and it's the one that landed, I guess, either yesterday or today, and it involves the complete, or seemingly complete abandonment of Hasbro's movie studio ambitions. Now, I've probably talked about that as much as I have Hasbro's distribution problems in past videos, but this one was, to me, much in the same vein as when I was the guy that was telling a girl I dated years ago and her family that Lance Armstrong was, a POS, and they worshiped the ground he walked on. And I was like, mark my words, one day you're going to see. And then sure enough, 10 years later, whatever it was, he got caught, doping or whatever. So when I read this whole thing about Hasbro's new CEO coming in and saying, we really shouldn't have been aspiring to be a movie studio like our last CEO. We're going to, from everything it looks like, they're going to try and sell off that $4 billion purchase that guy made right before he died in October of last year. He made that purchase in January or February of a Canadian production company because he wanted to be a movie studio. And I said it many times. I said Hasbro has forgotten what kind of company it is under the leadership of a typical corporate flack. This is just another corporate executive in the club of, revolving CEOs that they've got, just like this David Zaslav guy at Warner Brothers. And I said at the time, I said, Hasbro aspires to be a movie studio. I think the phrasing I used was Hasbro is a toy company, but you look over at the leadership and all they're saying is, I want to dance. And there's a really dumb move because they took their eye off of their distribution, their marketing, to their various demographics, the way they roll out products, the way they do product assortments, what they're offering to customers, the pricing problems. All that stuff was while this CEO who was using the company's resources, and in this particular purchase, $4 billion of company resources, to try and start or reinvent the company as a movie studio. And anybody with a brain is going, you can't create a cinematic universe from disparate brands that you've mostly acquired from Kenner, that you've let languish in a dusty, cobweb-ridden warehouse of thoughts, and you've never revisited them. Mask and Humanoids, Visionaries, all those. You've never gone back and revisited those, not once. And the fact is that even though some of them were mildly successful in the 80s, they were not the mega hits that G.I. Joe, Transformers, and He-Man were, and then later Ninja Turtles. If you couldn't stick the landing as an action figure line in the 80s, what hope do you have in 2022 to dust that off and throw it back out there? And then try and sell it as this cinematic universe? None. But again, there's a very egotistically driven, individual wants-minded corporate leadership that runs through corporate cultures. And this guy was like the rest, and he wanted to dance. That was what he wanted to do. And it was a bad move. And now this new CEO is like, no, this is a really bad move. Glad that he has the vision to see that it's not working and that Hasbro has lost a lot of money, time, and value, capital in this goose chase. Time will tell whether or not, I think his name is Chris Cox. I know his last name is Cox, C-O-C-K-S. He's the new CEO. Time will tell whether or not he actually is a practical guy with common sense who's going to right the ship at Hasbro and fix these problems, or if he's just going to be another in a long historical line of corporate executive dicks. I mean, right now it's anybody's guess. These are encouraging words to hear, but does that mean that after they get rid of their bad investments, once they divest themselves of these poor decisions, will it just be business as usual, or will they then turn their eye back to, let's focus on getting our, product lines more appealing. Let's focus on getting our distribution better so that our customers, feel more excited and engaged by our brands and our products. Let's stop wasting time over here is great. But if you don't then take the time you've gotten back from walking away from this and put it back into your toy business, then you're still just as lost. If you're not going to stop the bleeding over here, then what good was it stopping it over here? You know what I mean? So we're just going to have to see what this new CEO's priorities really are. And I hope for every collector out there that he's got the customer in mind. I really do. I hope he remembers what Hasbro is supposed to be about. Sounds nice on paper. The PR release sounds nice. I mean, he seems to be saying some of the right things about, we don't need to be a movie studio. We need to work traditionally with Hollywood studios to promote, and license our brands out to them like they did with Transformers in 2007. He even admitted in the press release that the Hasbro movie projects have really gone nowhere. I guess the last one we're going to see out of this is that upcoming Dungeons and Dragons movie. And the trailer for that has gotten some mixed responses from the people I know. People either think it looks really fun, and then other people are like, wow, that looks horrible. We'll see that if that does phenomenally well, you never know with these corporate idiots. They could then change their mind and go, well, no, actually, no, maybe we should take a chance of being a studio. But if Snake Eyes was any indication, if you can't get a G.I. Joe movie right, and they haven't gotten one right 3 times now, I have very little faith that you'd be able to get a Visionaries or Inhumanoids or Mask movie right. If you can't stick the landing on Snake Eyes, and boy, they didn't. They face planted on Snake Eyes. They messed all of it up. It just shows that if you're trying to run an in-house studio and you don't know your own stories and products that badly, this $4 billion investment to become the next Marvel was never going to work. I said it at the time. I'm saying it now, right after the new CEO saying it too. And, Wall Street has already rewarded them for these statements. Let's hope these statements transfer into action and that they're not just a press release to regain some shareholder value. That's all I can say. But as far as the company goes overall, distribution, with them blaming COVID, even though it was already bad before COVID with their products, I don't see a lot changing, especially when they're saying, oh, we're going to go down to smaller assortment releases. It's like, well, you're already doing that. Yeah. Which doesn't bode well for the advantages that they would gain by dropping the aspirations to be a movie studio. All the gains that they'll make from doing that don't sound like they're going to transfer over into common sense with their toy division. And that's too bad, because that means, Hasbro truly has forgotten what it does. It's forgotten what kind of company it is. It's forgotten it's abandoned what it's good at, and it's forgotten its core audience, which are kids. And when kids and adults alike can't get their products consistently on store shelves, and Hasbro tries to throw exclusives at you that then get sold out in seconds, and then anything you actually are guaranteed to get, you have to help, get a Kickstarter over the line on HasLab to guarantee that one purchase of yours. Otherwise, if you're not doing HasLab, you're just paying scalpers out the wazoo constantly to get what you need. It's not a good landscape for Hasbro. So yeah, a lot of amazing news, but it's going to be another few quarters before we see if there actually is going to be a turnaround, or if this was just to get Wall Street off their backs a little while longer. Because I know people say, don't speak ill of the dead and all this stuff, and I'm not. I'm speaking about the guy as he was a businessman making decisions, and I was on the record about this years before he passed away. That CEO was pie in the sky. He was daydreaming. And he was using the company's money to daydream in areas where that would have been great if the company had been firing on all cylinders in all these other areas. But these other areas of their business had slowly been deteriorating. They'd been losing the attention of the youth market. They weren't able to get stuff out to collectors in a consistent manner at that point. And there he is over here not paying attention to it, wanting to become 20th Century Fox. So I'm not surprised by any of this. And I'm just glad that somebody else at Hasbro claims to have seen the problem. But it never should have gotten past the, hey, it would be a great idea. The board of directors should have been like, not a good idea. But again, corporations are run basically like dictatorships. I mean, they're run like medieval monarchies, really. That's actually a better parallels. Medieval monarchies is you got all the power at the top, and then you got all these advisors trying to get the king to listen to reason. And if you're unfortunate enough to have a king that doesn't listen to reason and does all these crazy things like Mad King George, you're stuck with them until they pass on. and then another CEO comes in to take their place, like another king is anointed, and then you just hope that they're not the next Mad King George. You hope that it doesn't run in the family. You hope there's no nepotism, that's the best way I know how to look at it. CEOs are endless, and their corporate stupidity is bottomless. So let's hope that, with this random roll of the dice, that for a little while anyway, Hasbro turns it around. And that we experience a few good years with Hasbro for a little while before somebody else comes in to the leadership position and takes a dump on everything because they want to put their own fingerprints on it and turn Hasbro into a hair salon franchise or something. I don't know.